Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Zing 6 podcast. Today we've got an extremely special guest, Paul Jackson from Big Brother Canada 2.
Happy to be here. Totally insane, dude. You're welcome.
Amazing. So we would love to ask you some questions just about your whole Big Brother experience. So first, we want to start off with asking you, how much of a Big Brother fan were you before coming into the house? Were you one of those super fans who watched all the feeds? Have you seen a couple episodes? Where were you on the scale of Big Brother Canada fan?
Huge Big Brother fan. I mean, I watched the show from season 1. I mean, going way back to Chicken George to Bunky. I mean, I watched all of them. So I have had some insane stories, but yeah, huge fan of the franchise. Not so much Australia and England, those places, but really, you know, the States and then, of course, Canada, right? So huge fan. Allison can't even compare. Sabrina can't compare.
Yeah, some of the people are saying that they're huge fans, like Allison, but then she's like mixing up like different stuff, and same with Sabrina, and it's just like whatever.
Oh yeah, that's okay. It's all good. But no, I'm a huge fan. And listen, I wasn't exactly 10 either, right? So I mean, I didn't have a bedtime when I started watching the show. I knew what was going on. So
that's awesome. So now being in the Big Brother house and coming out, when you think about other seasons, are there some things that you think of differently, being like, wow, I've been there, like this has totally changed how I see this certain event? Like, are there any things that stick out in your mind?
Yeah, because you know what, when you're sitting on the couch watching it, your views on how to play the game, it's so different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Actually, not having been on the show, I realized that you can strategize all you want watching it from the couch, but when you get in that house, it's like everything is magnetized so much, the emotions, people's characteristics. I mean, every little thing you do, it's pointed out. So really and truly, I had a plan going in, but after I got in there, I realized that my game's going to have to change, as you saw, like almost every day when things change. So I meet people all the time, and the first thing they say is, how do I get on the show? Because I'm trying out. And I'm like, dude, you know, you can try out, and you can try to be someone that you're not, but when you get on the show, your true colors will be revealed, and that's really when it gets hard.
Yeah, for sure.
I think we always forget, too, as viewers, like, we're at home and we're like, we can see everything that's going on, so we're always like, oh, no, like, why did so-and-so do that? That was so dumb, but it's like, we forget that, like, we have all this information that they probably don't know, because we get to see all the conversations, all the alliances and the strategies and everything.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like, especially with something like the first 5, like, did you have any idea that that alliance was going on?
No idea. Listen, you know, I'm having dinner with Ika later, right, and we're going to get together and chat. And the funniest thing is that we always, like, when we talk now, we always say stuff like, man, if we only knew, because, you know what I mean? Like, you just don't know what's going on and who has the alliances. And when I went in, I thought the guys had an alliance first with the guys that I got together with, but I never knew that there was a first 5. If I had known that, things would have been different. I might have even made a different choice, you know, because we had that 6-4 split, and Sarah obviously went with the first 5.
Yeah.
That would have made a huge game change. Like, just playing the game would have made a huge difference. And you know that everybody had a clear, like, numbers as far as going out. Ika had a full vote, you know, 1 or 2 maybe, but everybody else pretty much knew they were going. I was the only vote that was split by one person. I mean, nobody knew what was going to happen. That's why they had Sarah vote at the end there. I don't know if you noticed, but she was going to be the swing vote, so didn't see it coming.
Yeah, like being a viewer and watching that moment when Sarah was sitting in the diary room being like, she was just sitting there, she's like, she didn't even know what to do, and I was just like, please keep Paul, just keep Paul, because it would have made the game so much more interesting. It would have been so different if you would have stayed. It was crazy. But,
and you know, they said to us, like they said to me, okay, Paul, like, what are you still planning on doing? And like, Deli and I had all these ideas of stuff we still wanted to do. Like, you know, we wanted to have some more talk shows and talk a bit about like religions and stuff. And I had some more pranks up my sleeve besides the mustard in the water. You know what I mean? There were a ton of things, that we still wanted to do. And then, it never came to fruition. But hey, there's always all-stars. You never know. So, yeah.
But yeah, another thing, like, since you are a big Brother fan, why did you go for the first HOH? Like, we've seen it in so many seasons that whoever wins the first HOH is, like, one of the hugest targets and, like, soon to go.
Dude, my biggest fans are, like, Janelle and Evil Dick. And, they had the first HOH, and they won, right? So it's not everybody that it didn't work for. But I must tell you something. This is a little bit of a secret, though, that, production plays a huge part in how things plays out. Now, I can't talk about that, but there was a lot of behind the scenes that you didn't see before that HOH came to fruition. But having said that, believe me, I also thought that if I had 7 people on the ice and I gave them my word, that it was a good move to gain trust in the house, right? And so I knew that if those 7 people trusted me, then we'd all make the decision and we'd all kind of be the HOH. Do you know what I mean? I thought, there's no win-or-lose situation in this. It's not like I won it, and now I have to totally decide who to put up. The house came up with the names. They gave me Ika, they gave me Andrew, and they gave me Anik. And I didn't have to vote.
Yeah, there was another thing, because you guys did the HOH like a week before the live feed started, so we missed pretty much your entire HOH. So there's a lot that we didn't see. Can you tell us a little bit about what we didn't get to see on the feeds?
All righty. Now, I want to get invited back just in case. I don't want to burn any bridges here. but let me say this, though. The first week, when I came out and the controversy started when I called Andrew out, and I guess we'll get to talk about that. Yeah. But I had thought that you guys saw the first week. They don't tell us that the live feeds are down the first week. So we are in the house thinking that you seeing all of the statements that he's making, all the derogatory statements that he's making, and I'm thinking, wow, if you guys heard it all week, it's not a problem when I call people out. But unfortunately, you didn't see it. So now I come out and I call the guy a racist and a sexist, and people are like, Paul, what's wrong with you? Why would you call him that? I'm like, wait a minute, we were all here. Like, Canada saw what happened, and unfortunately you didn't. And then it also told me there was a lot of people that didn't want to stand with me except Carl and Adele. And when they did stand up for me, the feeds went down, and you didn't even see that fight happen.
That was one day where everyone was so mad because, like, the feeds were gone all day long, and everyone was like, what is going on? Like, why are we missing so much? And we saw
rumors about fights and so much stuff. We were all speculating.
There was a rumor that Adele had self-evicted. Like, there was crazy stuff going on. Like, I remember there was, like, 2 minutes that we actually saw what was going on, and it was, like, some confrontation in the bathroom where I think you and Sabrina were confronting each other, and then I think Kyle and Ika were confronting each other, and we only saw like 2 minutes of it, and then the feeds were cut again, and it was like, what is going on?
Well, let me tell you what happened. Essentially what happened was that okay, so here's the deal, okay? Kyle and myself and Adele, we had a plan. We knew that Andrew was going to put me on the block. That was a no-brainer, right? Mm-hmm. So we figured the minute he made his speech, we were calmly going to ask everybody to sit around the living room table or whatever you want to call that section of the house. And we were basically going to talk about it. And then we were going to expose the alliances, the guys' alliance, right? Mm-hmm. That was what we were planning on doing. But what happened was Andrew then called me out, and then he said, everybody that wants to come with me upstairs, come with me now. So he avoided talking to me. So half the house started falling up the stairs, and I got a little nervous thinking, wait a minute, if he takes them upstairs, there's no way we're going to be able to have this discussion. That's when I called him out. And then, of course, what happened was that the feeds cut out, and because Adele and Carl told him, Paul's got a valid point. Listen, you've been making these derogatory statements, and you can't do that. But you guys didn't see that. All you saw was myself, Carl, and Adele kind of one side of the house. Mm-hmm. And then the second part of it was, then I called out Ika, and I said, listen, I mean, he said some stuff to you, and I defended you, and you didn't stand up for me. Like, what's up with that? And then Ika said, listen, the reality is I wasn't offended by it, so you shouldn't have been offended by it. So that's where that whole thing came into play. Now, I understand that Ika didn't want the heat on her at the time. She felt as though if she went after Andrew at that time, it might have really ruined their game to make enemies that early. And that's game. Unfortunately for myself, I grew up in Cape Town, South Africa, with a lot of apartheid and racism. So I didn't come to Canada to have this guy make those statements and not call people out. I couldn't do that, right? No matter who you are, sometimes you just have to speak up, and that's what I did. But you missed that whole thing. The feeds went out all day, and then all you got to see was the Carl, Adele, and, of course, the show on what not to do on Big Brother, which, by the way, we had a lot of fun with.
Yeah. That's crazy. Like, hearing that situation, like, it changes everything.
It changes everything.
Like,
yeah,
everything.
If I can say something, because me being black, I saw, like, everything, and I wasn't really, like, because they showed the clip of what he said, and he said urban, and I'm like, I say urban when I explain, black things, so I was like, I wasn't completely offended, but like you said, there's a lot we didn't get to see. But do you regret actually, like, calling him out for your game? Because obviously if you didn't say anything, you probably could have, like, stayed a little longer, or, like, would you change anything about that situation?
You know what? First of all, let me explain something to you. There was a part there you didn't see. When he said to Ika, the urban came out in you?
Mm-hmm.
What happened is, just prior to that, he said to her, oh, the black just came out of you, sister. And then they caught him saying that, and then he had to rephrase it. So you got the clean part, right, when he said it the second time, because he caught himself the first time. And that's when I had an issue with it. And Ika even turned and looked at Rochelle and rolled her eyes, like, did he just say that to me? That's when he realized he made that statement, and then he said the urban thing. But you see, you didn't see that part, right? So that's what I'm saying, though, is sometimes you don't get to see how that came about, because urban to me would have been cool. Because I'm like thinking, okay, that's the urban. Like, that's more of a, hip way of saying it. But to say to her first, oh, that's the black coming out of you, and then flip it when he realized what he said, wait a minute. Now, would I have done that? Oh, man, this is so tough, because in this game, even now when I listen to Sabrina and Sarah, a lot of them say our downfall was taking Paul out. Like, a lot of them realize now that what I did was actually not that bad, but I was the scapegoat for a lot of them. He can't be trusted. He's a hypocrite. Well, everybody's a hypocrite in the house. Everybody lies in the house, but I was their scapegoat. So the only thing that I might do differently is that I might have still called him out, but I don't think I would have called him a racist. I think what I would have said was, you've made some racist comments and sexist comments in the house, but I think the fact that I actually labeled him a racist, that really offended people. But my question was, how many comments do you have to make before you become labeled? Because I've been listening to it all week in the comments that he's been making, right? But I thought that was a little strong for my game, and that probably hurt me a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, like, another reason, like, people were freaking out watching this happen. Like, when you called him a racist, like, people were thinking it was going to be Big Brother 15, like, all over again. Like, here we go with, like, racism all over the place, and, like, people were freaking out. So I think that was another thing that kind of, like, boosted it up to be more of a bigger deal in the show, just because of the past season with Big Brother US.
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah.
And I think they were afraid of that, right? I think that's why the feeds went down, because they didn't want that stigma. And let's face it, we're a little more subtle. I mean, look how many times we say thank you in that house. That's almost sickening, right? You can tell it's Canadian. Like, everybody's like, thank you, thank you. I'm like, what the heck? How many times do we say thank you? But it reminds you that we are Canadian when we do that. And in the States, it gets a lot nastier, and they show it. Versus in this one, I don't think they wanted to do that this time around.
Yeah.
But you know what's crazy? I'll tell you what's crazy. Andrew still, to this day, doesn't know why Canada voted him out. Like, he still thinks it's because he had the first 5 alliance.
Oh my God.
I'm like,
it's crazy that he thinks that.
He was nervous. I was at the show when he was evicted, and Arissa came and was telling us in the break between the thing that when she was walking him to the change room, he was saying, wow, does Canada really hate me? Do they really hate me? And she was like, Well.
Hello. Right?
Exactly. It's like,
Here.
why would we nominate you if
I
we
know.
don't hate you? Like, and the same thing is like for Sabrina being like, oh yeah, they just see that I'm playing a good game. It's like, no,
No,
like
you were
your
playing a
game
good
is
game
all
and we
right.
liked you. Yeah, you would
like
still be
you're
in there.
controlling people. You're doing a good job, but we don't like what you're doing.
You're
so
making
you
weird
need to
eye
watch it.
contact with people. It's making us uncomfortable.
If she bitches about like everything, like if she wasn't so sensitive, I think like Canada and me being American would like her. But that's probably her downfall too. So.
She's gonna be the next Amber from Big Brother 8 with her crying montage.
Yeah.
Oh God.
I mean, she had me fooled. She had me
Yeah.
fooled. I mean, for the first week, right? She was in my HOH room all the time, and she played off this, I'm the older brother or like my younger daughter thing, where she like came to me and talked to me about her boyfriend of 4.5 years and what happened. Like we spent a lot of time that week. You didn't see that, right? But we spent a lot of time talking, and she'd be all crying and stuff. And at one point, this was really important too to understand. Do you remember when I said to Sabrina, I said, it doesn't matter. I told Adele that I don't care. He cannot move at you. That's just wrong, right? Remember that?
Yeah.
And then I could totally use that and said, you went against your alliance. You talked about Deli that way. But I told Deli, I said to Deli, I don't care. Guy, you don't move and you don't do that. I don't care who it is in the house. And I defended Sabrina, not to sell out Deli, but to tell her no matter who it is, that's wrong. You just don't do it. Because Deli was antagonizing her a little bit, and he did the move thing. And I told her that. But I could use that to kind of make it look like I was turning on Deli. And Deli and I had a strong enough bond, but when Deli heard that, he felt as though, Paul, I can't trust you. I'm like, guy, I told you. You can't say that to a woman who's overweight. Like, who does that? Who moves? You know what I mean? But obviously it was used against me, right? So that's how it played out.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't think we saw the mooing at all. So, like, all over the place, people were like, oh, yeah, he mooed. And then others were like, no, he didn't. And then it was like, so we didn't really know what had happened.
Yeah.
Things where rumors kind of were going around and no one really knew what happened.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, you know that Sabrina and Deli did not get along, right? For the most part of the season, right? And the whole thing started with the fight that happened in the washroom with the whole thing of the Quran, right, and the Bible. You guys didn't know about that?
No, we didn't see that either. I think that when the feeds first turned on, I remember like after the first episode turning them on like right away, and I think that Adele and Sabrina were talking like on the upstairs level about some sort of religion thing, but it's like we didn't have any sort of context for what was going on. And then the day that the feeds were off all day about like the whole racism thing, it came back when Sabrina was crying in the storage room about how about how Adele was mooing at her. So we literally got like we didn't see any of those. We only saw the reactions that Sabrina had to them.
Now this is crazy because you know for a fact that I've been out for almost 2 weeks, and almost every single day I've done at least 2 or 3 interviews, right? Because there's just so much media around this.
Yeah.
It's funny that this is the first time that I just found out that you guys did not actually know how that started.
No.
That's crazy because I would have thought you guys knew. But what had happened was Sabrina, was telling somebody else in the house that the Bible apparently has been written so many times. And then Deli said, but the Quran has only been written once. And then Sabrina said, oh, so what are you trying to say, that being Muslim is better than being Christian because your book has only been written once and mine's been written over so many times? And that's when the whole thing sparked about the whole Christian and Muslim thing, and that's when the whole fight ensued. See what I'm saying? And then from there, it was like, your religion's better than mine. I didn't say that. And then Deli got really upset, and the two of them blew up at each other. But that's how it started.
Okay.
See what I mean?
Wow.
So.
Puts a lot more things in context. Because
context is how that started.
Yeah, because it was kind of like, why do Adele and Sabrina hate each other so much? Like, what is going on here?
Getting along. The first week, those two were playing, like, goofing around. We thought there was, like, showman started in the house between these two. Like, there was no
Wow.
They were wrestling together. They kept on playing, like, Deli kept on coming up with these Deli quizzes, and he'd, like, say, the funniest one was, like, he'd go, okay, who's that Cliff with the red dog? And we're like, Deli, you just gave the answer. Like, and he was serious. Like, he would say, okay, who's the 5 Ninja Turtles? And we're like, Deli, there's like only 4. He goes, no, there's the guy with the mask. I'm like, no, but he wasn't a turtle, dude. Like, he'd do these things, and it just crack us up. You know, and he'd do the spider monkey all the time. Like, he'd do these silly things. And Sabrina and him would keep playing off each other, so we thought, wow, there's something happening. But then, of course, boom, that happened. And after that, Deli saw her true colors, because then he said she can't be trusted, because after that she just continued to make up lies about people, and he was onto her from the beginning.
Yeah, that was one really cool thing about seeing Adele, and the fact that he was, like, on to Sabrina, and that, like, even when he got his power, like, I think he got a tweet from someone saying that he was, like, letting him know that he's the only one that sees through her lies. So that was really cool.
Now let me ask you a question. Did you see the part that Deli was called a homosexual?
No, but I heard about that. I heard something about Adele being, like, someone attacking his sexuality and him getting really upset about it, but we didn't see that either.
Oh my gosh! This is insane, dude! You didn't see that either?
No.
This is like the first scoop, eh? I can only imagine how many people are watching this going, what the hell is he talking about?
Oh my God.
Listen, though, because I remember when Adele, when was it? There was some fight, and Adele was really upset, and he said, if anyone says anything about my religion or my sexuality, and we were confused because we were like, what does that mean? Because we didn't see this comment. So what happened there?
It was him.
Oh my gosh! Look at you drinking that bottle, listening. Listen, let me tell you this, okay? When you remember when we were watching the movie, the Diversion, the movie?
Yeah.
You remember that, right? Okay. And then they were inside, right?
Mm-hmm.
You remember that? Did you guys see the feeds of that? What happened inside the big fight?
I don't think so. No, I think they turned the feeds off.
These were off for Divergent, I think, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, the feeds were off for Divergent.
So there was a huge fight that happened, and that's where the whole Kyle Moo thing came into play. Because Kyle and Adele, they were left with Ika, Sabrina, and I think it was Netta and Rochelle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and Heather. So what happened was, I guess they started talking about the weight thing, and then I think Ika made some comments towards Deli in regards to either homosexual or something like that, and that's where that whole thing sparked the conversation. It was between Ika and Deli, and then what happened is then I guess Sabrina got involved, and then the whole Moo and Cow thing came into play. That's where all of that started. And what happened was when we came back inside, it was crazy. Like everybody was fighting, screaming, Sabrina was crying, and everybody was yelling at each other. John went upstairs and threatened Adele and said, I'll see you when you get outside the house or something like that. And I'm telling you, it was nuts. And I'm thinking, you guys must be watching this, but I guess you weren't.
No, we didn't see any of that.
And that's when Adele threatened to leave the show. He threatened to walk up the show. He was like, I'm done with it. He took off his stuff and cut it out and tried to calm him down. It took forever. I think he was like, yeah, he was consoled for a long time. But
That's
at that
crazy.
point, you know how bad it got? I mean, at one point, you know, I take some medication when I'm in the house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when I get short of breath, I need to take it. So what happened was I knew where my medication was, right? So I just wanted to see kind of how everybody felt about me. So at one point I came to them and I said, guys, I'm really feeling out of breath. I said, I can't find my meds. Do you know that not a single person moved to help me look? Not a single person. I mean, that's how tense it was in that house. They were literally, if you die of a heart attack right now, we don't care. The only person that came up and said, Paul, I'm going to help you, was Kyle.
Wow.
And from there on end, that solidified our bond. when Carl showed me that no matter what happened, because Carl and I and Deli had that big fight in the room after that, because things happened, and obviously
yeah, we saw that.
That's right when the feeds came
upset
out.
with me because Sabrina used that opportunity to console with me and say, Paul, I can't believe that they would call me, they'd moo and stuff like that. And then I called Carl and Adele out into the room and I said, listen, I don't care what we do. You can't say that to her. They were so upset with me because I sided with Sabrina because I said, you can't do that. I don't care. And of course, that's when they were really upset with me. Then they told me what Ika said, and then of course then I understood what was going on because I didn't know at that point. Then Dali leaves for like 6 hours to be like consoled because of what was said to him. Carl waited for him outside of the diary room, and I'm upstairs like, I'm alone. What do I do? So that's when I tried the whole medication thing, and Carl still came up and said, I'll help you, Paul. So, nah, man, much respect for Carl. He's such a great kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, can I?
That's what is going on.
Yeah, that was one thing about Kyle, especially like pre-show, like before the show started. Everyone thought he was like this jockhead, and everyone thought he was gonna be like this, really mean person on the show. And like I honestly thought he was gonna be evicted week 1, but it was week 2, so I was off by like a week. But did we get the wrong image of Kyle? Because I honestly like the whole first week he was so annoying, and then the second week, like his last episode, he was so sweet and caring. So do you think people didn't give him a chance at first, or like was he really like hiding something from like the viewers, or?
Listen, I was surprised that I was kept and I didn't go home and Kyle got sent home because Andrew was so blinded with his anger with me. I mean, this guy couldn't even sit with me in the same room. He hated my guts so much. And that was probably his downfall because his emotion took over, and Kenny was the only one that could reason with him. And I think with Kenny reasoning with him, I guess you got to see that Kyle was the bigger threat. But I did not know that, right? I mean, I don't know if you guys saw, but I hid under the bed at one point to listen to some of the conversations. I was a bit sneaky, right? They didn't show that, though. But I was hiding. I was hiding behind the bed. And I was waiting for people to come in, and then they stopped talking. And then when they're done, I'd jump out and go, ha, now I heard you. And I'd walk out the room. Right? So, of course, I heard Kyle and Dali talking about the fact that Kyle is going to go up, and he's probably going to be backdoored. And that's when I jumped out, and they both looked at me, and then they were like, okay, I guess Paul knows now that he's safe. At that point, I didn't know. And they were like,
oh my God, that's so funny.
Yeah, so these are the things you didn't see, right? So, yeah. But Kyle, super guy, and I think the problem was that you guys got to know him in the last week when he knew he was going home, and then his guard came down and he started cheering. And the best part about Kyle, I don't know if you saw him training me in the house, because this kid worked me hard. But
yeah, we saw.
But the thing is that with Kyle, is that, you know what, he was portrayed as this big jock kind of dude, and he'll still tell you that he is, But to me, man, he's just a nice guy, and he runs in a totally different race. And I think he's going to do really good out there because super guy. And, I mean, pure at heart, too, right? Just everything that he said when he came out is really who he is. The guy was praying. I mean, the guy knew nothing about being Muslim, and then he's bowing down and praying with Deli. That was incredible to see.
Yeah, watching that was crazy. Like, with all his bio stuff, like, he was just, like, talking about having big muscles and, like, being this, like, tough guy. And all of us were like, oh, the ego on this guy. Like, this is crazy. So, like, we did a draft among us, and, like, Kyle was the last one to be picked. Like, nobody liked him. Like, we thought he was like a jerk, and then seeing him in the house the last week, we were all like, just
crying when he got evicted.
I literally cried when he got evicted. Like,
I cried.
I cried.
Super nice guy. I mean, listen, but I think that they originally portrayed him as that kind of jock kind of dude, right? That's who he was. I mean, who thought I would end up being the bad guy? Like, here I am, a motivational speaker, and I'm coming to the house to motivate people, and all of a sudden, I'm like the bad guy coming out of the wall.
Where did that come from? When did you decide to try to play like the bad guy? When did you make that decision?
Well, I heard, you see, this is the thing that's interesting. A lot of times when I say things, people were like, "Oh, they heard that," or they didn't. But at one point, I don't know if you knew this. I was Ica got. This is one instance of where it became real for me. Is that I was crying at one point because I missed my kids. It's really hard in there sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, and then I was told by somebody that Sabrina and Andrew and Kenny, they were all laughing at me and making fun of me for crying. I don't know if you saw that. And so
We
Doesn't surprise me.
making fun of you, but I think we saw when you were crying to Ica.
yeah, okay, so that was one example, right? But then it became real to me that, you know what? This thing about being a dad and having kids and being the older guy, and I don't think it meant anything to these guys. I think that the first 5 literally looked at me like, this guy is an easy target. Like, you know what I mean? We're going to be able to take him out no problem.
Yeah.
So then I thought, okay, you know what? How do I flip this? How can I become the person that you almost want to take to the end because nobody's going to vote for you? Do you know what I mean? I thought maybe I should play that card. So now I'm going to become a bit of a jerk. I'm not going to talk to people as much. I'm still a bit kind of humorous, but I'm going to tell Canada what I'm thinking. Well, it kind of backfired on me. And I'm like, wait a minute. I called this guy out, but you didn't know why I called him out. Everybody's upset with me. And now I started reverting back again to trying to be the nice guy. And I think that's what we were counting on. If I stayed in the house, then we would have started to play the game. You know what I mean? Between myself, Ica, and Adele, and really, really having some fun with it. And boy, oh boy, I mean, look at Canada's vote. I would not have been voted as, out by Canada. And then you have, HOH being Heather. I mean, that's just freaking awesome.
Yeah.
I just don't know what Rochelle would have done. You think she'd have put me up?
Rochelle would have done whatever Sabrina did.
Whatever Sabrina wanted. Like, it's so hard to know what Rochelle wants just because she'll listen to anything Sabrina tells her.
Is it just, or is she just like the most boring play ever?
I think it comes into play because she is really young. She's like our age. Well, like the like 20. So she's really young and doesn't really know what to do. And I'm quite sure she doesn't really watch the show as often as like us super fans. So I think she's just a little naive and ignorant, honestly. So that's just what I get from her.
But you guys don't be that boring, though. Come on now, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's a lot of 20-year-olds out there that I know that are like crazy super fans that have some personality.
Well,
but
wasn't Gary? Gary was 20 when he was in the house, wasn't he?
Or something. Gary? Was he that young?
I think he's pretty young. I think
the youngest house guest last season was what's his face? Anil. Anil was the youngest one because he was in college.
Okay.
Anil. Yeah. So I mean, hey, it is what it is. But I just think that sometimes people come in and she seemed very bubbly on her interviews. So maybe that's the way she portrayed herself. And then she came in the house, and it was so eerie because you know what she'll do? She'd walk around the house going, "Evict me now, I'm AJ. Evict me now, I'm AJ." all day long, dude. No pun intended. I love AJ. Yo, AJ, peace out, man. You're my boy. But that's what she'd say all day long. Like, "Evict me now, I'm AJ." And I would everybody'd look at her like, "What the hell are you doing?" So.
Yeah, I just think it's silly how she's playing the game right now. It's like you can't just put all of your eggs in like the Sabrina basket. Like, you need to make other alliances with other people, like Allison, who came into the house just getting close to Andrew. It didn't look like she was making connections with anyone else, and now Andrew's gone, and Allison's got a good chance of like going home soon, and she completely screwed herself over because she didn't make any sort of connections with anyone else.
You know what? Actually, this is funny because Adele was saying to John yesterday that, oh man, I think Sabrina's like the worst player ever. And then John said, no, I think that was Paul, wasn't it? And then Adele goes, no, he even beat Paul. So here's the problem. Here's the problem with the first 5. The problem with the first 5 is that Andrew only trusted the first 5. Unlike Sarah and Kenny that started to branch out to others, and Arlie, Sabrina and Andrew and Allison, they stuck with it. So now that their partners in crime are gone, they stuck. They don't know where to go. That's why Allison's alone. And Sabrina is pretty much alone, and they're in trouble. And Rochelle, because she stuck with Sabrina, guess what? Now they just like fish being picked off. So this is very interesting.
Yeah, the next couple weeks should be really interesting just to see how it goes. Especially since there's going to be a double eviction this week. Like, that's going to be crazy.
And that hidden veto is somewhere out there, too. So.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to go on with that.
So bad.
It would help him. This is another question I have for you. With Adele having his power and that, like, veto thing that lets him play in a veto, right? But him telling everybody else that he can, like, take someone off and replace them. But him not being able to do that, do you think it's going to mess up his game eventually? Like, the fact that people are going to find out that he was lying about it, or he might get himself in a situation where he really needs to take someone like maybe Arlie off the block, but he can't do it?
Yeah, see, this is the thing, though. And, you know, I told Deli, I said to him, listen, you know, you shouldn't have told him it was only good for 2 weeks. You should have said until you get into the jury house. You know what I mean? So that this way they don't expect you to use it within 2 weeks. And then he comes up with this: if I don't use it, I get a prize. Well, who cares? You know, who cares what the prize is? This is about the power that you have in the house. Now, I've watched the show long enough to know what the diamond veto does. And I knew this wasn't the diamond veto. I knew that off the bat. And at one point, I even questioned him on it. Do you remember that? He got so upset with me. When I asked him, I said, do you remember that? Did you guys see that? When he came in the have-not room? And I was struggling with how to ask him if it really was what he said it was.
Yeah, he got all mad at you. He was saying like that you didn't trust him and stuff. He got so mad. I remember watching that and I was like, oh my god.
And you know what? Go ahead.
Because with the diamond power veto, you're not even allowed to tell people you have it. So I don't know. I guess a lot of people aren't super fans of the show in that house because they should have caught that right away. You're not allowed to talk about it at all. So
no.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, he was allowed to tell people about it, but it was up to him what he was going to tell them, right? Yeah. So this is the funniest thing ever, right? Because you know that 15 minutes before he came, I contemplated how I was going to ask him, because I went into the diary room and they said to me, so that's what Adele told you it does. And I was like, wait a minute. Why would you say it like that? So when Deli comes to me, I was like, how can I say this without sounding like I don't trust him? So I used the analogy of a diamond. I said, if you found a diamond ring or something, what would people ask you? And he's like, what do you mean? Like, how much it costs? I'm like, no, what would people ask you? And he's like, what? Like, where I found it? I'm like, no, what would people ask you? And he's like, you didn't get it. So finally, I'm like, they want to see it, dude. And he goes, oh, you don't trust me, Paul? What the hell's wrong with you? You know, I try to trust you. And then all I have to say, this is the beautiful part. I go like this, 15 years of marriage, dude. Promise you on that. And he goes, okay, now I trust you. Hilarious. I took a lot of views from him, though, seriously. I told him at one point, I said, nobody in the house or even out of the house has ever talked to me the way that he has. So he's lucky I didn't beat the crap out of him. I love the guy so much, man, and he was a character, so it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, that's crazy. But I think it'll be interesting if Adele does find this hidden veto, because it will help the power that he has, clearly.
You know, yeah, this guy, you know, the sad thing is that nobody trusts him in the house. Let's face it, right? Charlie doesn't trust him. John doesn't trust him. Netta doesn't trust him. Rochelle, Sabrina, nobody trusts him. And the first chance they get, they're going to try to take him out.
Exactly. Like, as soon as they find out that the power is not real, it's going to give them enough reason to want him out. Like, I was hearing last night on the feeds, I think, that John and Netta were saying that, like, when they get out, like, the members of, like, the first 5 and whatever, that Adele is going to be the first one they go after because they don't trust him. Especially because he was being weird with Sabrina last night, too, about, like, who was going to get nominated and stuff, and it's just, like, it's weird. But, yeah.
You know, the thing with Adele is that he's just, I mean, he's like Andrew said, how many times can you jump on a sinking ship, right, and still survive? I mean, he hung out with Kylie, hung out with me, hung out with Ika, and we all in the house, and he's still there, so he's hanging on. So I think for him, it's really now the luck of the game, because if, you know, Heather gets it, that's great, and if John gets it, that's great. Anybody in that alliance. But I tell you, if the minute Sabrina or Allison or Rochelle gets it, or even Kenny. We're hoping Kenny goes home. He's going to be in some hot water. But Canada loves him, man. That's what's awesome about it. So look out for the Kyle and Adele and Paul show, eh?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, just about Kenny. You said hopefully Kenny goes home first. That's been I started this season. I was like Kenny's #1 fan. I was so excited. And lately, I'm like on team let's get rid of Kenny, and I want to know your opinion on him, because I really started to change after I was seeing how he was treating Ika after the whole letter incident and everything.
Yeah.
I thought he was so rude to her, and just, I don't know, I had a complete like I switched so much, and now I was like, I wanted Canada to put up Kenny and Andrew, which is so different from me at the beginning of the season. So what is your kind of take on Kenny, and what's your opinion of him, having spent time with him and knowing him?
Well, I don't know if you know this, but before I got my HOH room, right, I spent the night in bed with Kenny. So we slept together. And so, when I had my HOH room, I spent a lot of time talking to Kenny. You know what I mean? I got to know him and how he started modeling. And the one thing about me is, I don't know if you know this, I love talking either to the cameras or asking people questions. Hence why I did the Paulina show. And I had much fun with it. You know what I mean? Just my alter ego coming out. What can I say? But the thing is with Kenny is that he's very grumpy in the house. Sarah and Kenny are the grumpiest people in the house. They're always grumpy. They're always complaining. So the thing is with Kenny, though, is that he's also very angry. And so he's like passive-aggressive. He'll be quiet, and then all of a sudden, did you see what happened with the water and the mustard? Like, he just blew up, and he does that occasionally, and then you get to see how angry he was. And I think that was because he was really fighting with the fact that he was not being himself. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people I talk to in the house, trust is huge. And that's like me saying I don't have kids. For Kenny not to talk about who he really is a huge thing. And I think the biggest mistake he probably made was he should have either come out in the beginning or not said it at all. The fact that he now told Sarah is a card for Sarah to play whenever she needs to. And I don't know where Sarah's loyalty really lies right now, with Kenny or with Arlie or with John. So I don't know. You know what I mean? But he should not have said anything. Personally, I think you cannot go on the show and not be proud of who you are, because at the end of the day, Canada's watching and you'll be judged for that. So
yeah,
let's see what happens. And you know what? The fact that he talked to Ika the way he did showed your true colors, bro. I'll tell you something now. Here's the crazy thing about this game. You can play this game and you can be called a hypocrite on this game, which I was. I was called a hypocrite. Mm-hmm. But it's okay to be called a hypocrite when you're making 500 alliances in your first week. That's okay. It's just a bad game move. But to call people nasty names, like Kenny said some nasty things about me and my family and my kids, and also saying that to Ika, a mother of two, come on, dude, that's not game. That's just being nasty. You know what I mean?
That was really horrible. I'm such a huge Ika fan. I still am a huge Ika fan. I was so upset. I thought he was just so mean to her, and then it kind of just made me look, and I was like, he has done some really kind of, like you said, kind of grumpy and mean things in this house. So yeah, I've switched sides, and I'm pro Kenny on the block now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But going back to the Ika letter thing, you've seen that now, right? You've watched the whole letter situation. What did you think of that, and what would you do if you were in Ika's position at that moment?
Okay, listen, let's be real about this, right? I mean, you and I both know that, and Peter said it. He said, listen, if you're in there about the letters, then you're playing the wrong game. Exactly. This is not about the letters. What people were ticked off about was the fact that she called out the alliances, and she called out people's characters. That's why people were upset. It had nothing to do with the money, because even Sarah said afterwards, let's be realistic. The fact is, we would have all taken the money, because maybe not Sarah, because she cries like 20 times a day. It's almost pathetic. Like, really? I mean, this girl, I don't know how many more times you can cry in the house, but she's always crying. So the thing for me is that, boo-hoo-hoo, or whatever. So the thing for me was that, listen, They were upset because she called it the alliances, not because she took the money. But I love the way she chopped, kicked, and all that. Oh, we laugh about that all the time now. I think it's so funny. I'm so iconified, it's not even funny. I get Paulina show too, because it's coming.
Yes. But yeah, that whole thing, like, I was so proud of the way that Ika handled that. Like, even the way that she called out everyone, like, she didn't even care that people were watching when she found out afterwards. Like, she did not care. Like, she's going to call Andrew an asshole. She's going to say that Andrew has control over everyone. And it was so good. It was amazing to watch as a fan because it's like pretty much everyone is thinking the exact same things that Ika said out loud, and it was amazing to watch that.
And that's what I love about Ika, right? This is what I love about Ika. I'll tell you something. Ika was real from the very first day that I met her. Actually, I said to Ika when I put on the block, I said her downfall might be the fact that she's not willing to change for anyone in the house. Ika is who she is, and that's it, like Adele. You know what I mean? What you see is what you get, and I thought that might hurt her game because Ika wasn't willing to kind of play along with people. She told people, like she even told Rochelle, "You're getting on my nerves." You know what I mean? Straight up. So that's who Ika was, and the fact that she told people, you know, exactly what she thought, I think that she played it perfectly. What I don't understand is I still want Andrew to explain what he meant by "hold me back."
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was kind of like almost like a physical threat sort of thing. Like, I'm going to punch her in the face, beat her up sort of thing. That pissed me off, too. It's like, she's, like, look at her. She's a tiny, like, girl, and you're going to come over and you're going to punch her or, like, physically do something. You need to be held back. Like, calm down.
All because someone isn't under your control. She was brave enough, and she was, like, had the guts to stand up to you, and you are such a child that you can't even deal with this. Like, Ika, man.
Yeah. And then, of course, and then he cries the last week he's going home. Well, I really feel sorry for you, buddy. Come on.
Yeah.
Really. Now that he's out of the house, do you see yourself, like, getting close with him or anything, like, really even talking to him?
Listen, I mean, he's in a different province, first of all, right? So the chance of that happening is slim. But I don't think his ego's big enough for us to be in the same province anyway. But the thing is, listen, here's the reality, right? I really, you know, based on what I do, I love talking to people. I love meeting people. I mean, it kills my wife when I go to the mall now because I'm like, I'll be gone in an hour. I'll be back 6 hours later because I'm talking to everybody. I'm a people person, but I love good energy. And I just didn't like the way Andrew presented himself and the way he spoke to people. And a lot of people were upset with him in the house. They couldn't stand him. I mean, even John said to me the night before I left, he said, "Paul, I want you to know," in his Newfie accent, which I love, he goes, "Paul, I just want you to know that I can't stand that guy, Paul. I want you to know I respect you so much." Arlie said the same thing to me. He said, "Paul, I hate that guy so much, Paul." You know, like, you know what I'm saying? But the thing is, people played along. So Andrew doesn't realize until he gets a chance, he'll get to see that many people in that house could not stand to be around him. Couldn't stand it. And you know, he said in his interview yesterday, I heard him say, "Oh yeah, we say a lot of things in the house, and I'll have a beer with Paul." No, I still think that you have a lot of answering to do. And I know that somebody told you how to respond to a lot of those questions, but I also know you probably avoided a lot of the questions that were really asked, like Peter did, and like Arissa did when they truly called you out for what you did.
Yeah, exactly. Like when Arissa told him, like, no one put the words "dumb bitch" in your mouth, like towards Heather, it was like, yes, exactly. Like, you didn't have to go after all the people in the house in the way that you did.
That's it. That's it. But listen, man, I mean, listen, for Canada to vote you out, that's huge. I mean, if that's not humbling enough for you, then you must be the most arrogant person in the world for your country to freaking vote you out and you still not have a bit of thought about your actions. I'm like, come on, man. Like, seriously.
It's crazy. Like, all he has to do is go on the internet for like 10 minutes, search his name, and see what people are saying about him. Like,
can you imagine?
Nobody.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. You know, and that's why I'm glad that I had that week or two after I said it to at least have people understand who I was and see me for truly for who I am. Yeah. Andrew was a jerk from the beginning until he became a baby at the end. Like, there was no transformation to this guy.
Yeah. Now looking at who's left in the house, who do you think has the best chance of making it to the end?
Listen, I mean, Arlie is just, I mean, besides the fact that he mooned me a couple of times, and he ran like naked around all the times, and he dipped his balls in like cranberry juice. I mean, this kid was like, he's like calm 1 minute, and then all of a sudden he just went crazy, and then he'd do his hair, and then the eighth, like, weird, eh? But Arlie is smart. Like, he's so smart that he knew how to play both alliances. He knew when to step off the sinking ship just in time to gain trust with the other side. And now it seems like he's in a very good position. So I think that, you know what? I think Arlie, I think he's in a good place. I think Netta's going to become a target because she's close to John, let's face it. Yeah. I think Sabrina is a target because, again, her and Rochelle and the whole first 5 alliance thing. But Arlie is very well situated right now. So I don't know. We'll see. But I think he's got a... I mean, I want Adele to win. But I just think Adele to win right now would be like... I mean, it'd be hard, and he deserves the game. I mean, Can you imagine his acceptance speech? I was on this thinking ship. I was with Paul, who's like probably one of the worst players ever. Okay, besides Sabrina. I tried to line it with Ica. And then he'd go through the whole list, and he'd, like, come out on top. So, kudos.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like, I definitely see what you mean with the whole Arlie thing, and we've been talking about that a little bit, but we've kind of come to the point where we think he's just getting way too cocky. Like, eventually it's just going to screw him over. Like, I think what Peter said on the sideshow the other night about how, like, when you start getting comfortable in the game, that's when you should really be worried. And Arlie feels so comfortable. Like, pretty much whoever wins HOH next week, Arlie's fine. Whoever wins HOH the next week after, Arlie's probably going to be fine again. Yeah. But I think he should start worrying a little bit more and not thinking that he's like the greatest player of all time.
Yeah. You know what? And I see what you're saying because I have noticed the last little while he's starting to get a little cocky. But I think it's also because, you know, Arlie's been kind of the low man on the totem pole, right? Did you see that standoff between him and Kenny in the pantry? I loved it. Kenny said, you know, what are you thinking? And Arlie goes, what do you mean, what am I thinking? And Kenny goes, no, I'm asking you what you're thinking. And Arlie goes, no, tell me what I'm thinking. What am I thinking?
I know, I saw that on the screen.
It was so freaking hilarious. Because they're both looking at each other, and Kenny's like, okay, I'm confused. I don't know. I thought, Arlie, are you on my side or not? And Arlie's like, of course I am, bro, but I'm so scared. So let me throw Sabrina at you. How do you feel about Sabrina? Like, he knows how to deflect a conversation really well, and then it doesn't come back to him, you know? So, but yeah, you're right. He's getting a little cocky, and that's because he's been such a big fan of the show. I mean, we talked that first week. He has watched the show so many times. He's such a big fan, and he had to sit back for the longest time and let the first 5 make the decisions and him sit back. So I think he's just getting anxious now to really play the game. But you got a good point.
Yeah. So now let's talk a little bit more about like your experience outside the house and kind of how like you've been reacting to fans and stuff. Do you find that you have more fans than haters? Like, do you have that many haters that are like writing you on Twitter being like, fuck you, Paul, like blah, blah?
Well, you know what? I mean, you know what? The crazy thing is that I thought I would have had a lot more haters. I really did. I thought when I called Andrew out and then I found out that you guys didn't see the first week, I was so panicked, right? But I think my saving grace was you got to see 2 weeks of me, and I kind of grew on people, especially with Adele and Kyle and the Paulina show. And so I did a lot of things to entertain people, and I slip and slide like a whale. Come on, man. Oh, seriously. Forget the camera adding 10 pounds. It was more like 150, okay? But I could laugh at myself, and I realized that a lot of people said, and they still, I mean, today I was at one of the malls here, and every time I bump into somebody, now here's the crazy thing. No matter how many times people hate you online, when they meet you in person, they're always nice to you. Nobody comes up to me and goes, "You're one a-hole." Andrew might get that, I don't know, but nobody's come up to me, right? I'm walking my kids to my wife, nobody. Everyone's like, "Oh, Paul, we loved you." So you don't know. But from what I get, the gist of it is that people really thought that I was entertaining, and I brought a lot of the older audience back to the game and to the show, because a lot of people that I met today, like in their late 30s, 40s, 50s, were like, we watched the show because we felt like there was somebody in there kind of a little older that brought a more mature kind of situation to the game. So I like that aspect. But I was putting in gas yesterday, and I had a 5-year-old screaming, "Paul, I love you!" And I was like, 5, the mom's waving over at me, So yeah, it's crazy, but I'm loving it, man. I really am. There's so much love. So for the most part, I think, unless I came out immediately after calling Andrew out, I think that would have been a bad situation.
Yeah.
Because we had to keep my kids home that day from school. Like, that's how bad it got.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was really bad. Like, but, my wife was here, and I had a lot of friends around and stuff. And you know what the coolest thing is? All of the Big Brother American cast, from McCrae, you name it. I had so many people call me to support me, including Liza, AJ, all the cast from last season. They all called my wife to make sure she was okay. That was awesome to see. Spencer, Judd, you name it. People that I idolized on the show would call me and text me and go, is he okay, and talk to my wife. So if you're a Big Brother fan, come on. These guys,
that's crazy.
What? So, yeah.
Like, that's insane. I can't imagine how cool that is. Like, that's one thing that I really like about the whole Big Brother thing is, like, after it, like, everybody's, like, just such a close little family. Like, it's so cool watching, like, everybody from different seasons interacting with each other. It's really cool.
And now I get invited to, like, these parties, like BB Season 10 or BB Season 5 or, like, BB Season 15. They have these parties, and, like, I'm invited to them. And so one's coming up, like, in a couple of weeks, and I'm going to get to meet all these guys that I've idolized for the last 15 years. That is insane.
Amazing.
Cool.
Huh? Come on.
You have extra tickets?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. It's like, come on, Paul, invite us.
Let's just say I have a lot more family members and friends now than I've probably had in a very long time,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's awesome.
It's a good experience, yeah.
Awesome.
I have a question. Will you ever bring back the Paulina show? Like, ever? Like, do a show for the fans?
I can't believe how many people are actually asking me that. Like, listen, I love people. I have, gay friends, I have straight friends, and I have more requests from my straight friends than my gay friends to bring Paulina back. Like, they all just love him so much. So, actually, I'm talking to Ike, and I'm like, because she was like from Quisha or something. So I'm like,
yes, you two should get together and do it together.
Yes, Quisha and Queen Paulina.
Yeah. It's not exactly where, the direction I wanted to go. Value to have some fun and just be accepting people for who they are. I love it. So, hey, you might even see me on the float, eh? Woo!
So cool.
Yes!
Yes, that'd be so cool.
This year.
Yes, but I think that moment, like that whole Queen Paulina thing, like when you guys all had to like dress up and stuff, like that was a huge moment to like really see who you guys were and see how fun you were. Like before that, I was like, okay, these guys are all right, like whatever. But then all that fun that happened that day was so enjoyable to watch, and especially the way that you stayed in character. Like I think Adele had to take pictures or something like out by the hot tub. He's like, Paul, come take pictures, and you're like, I can't do this, I can't run, blah blah blah. You were like so in character, and he's like, come on, Paul, like I gotta do this. And you're like, don't make me run. It was so funny.
I think you and I need to do a show at the Eden Center. Shelby and I can come watch.
Yes.
I miss it. I miss it. You know what? Listen, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, I'm going to look back, and come on, man. This is an amazing experience. They were saying at the time, and I was just coming out of house, that the show has hit like 6 million hits already. Like, it's insane how many hits the show's gotten and how popular it is, and I didn't realize until I came out. My kids' Instagrams accounts are like nuts. Social media is crazy. So it was amazing. And I tell people all the time, they say to me, oh, we've tried out, especially in the States, because it's like 15 seasons, people try it every year. I keep telling them, keep trying out, because if you ever get on, it's the most amazing experience. And I was blessed to be called back for the second time. and not have to go through the whole process. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that said something. Like, who does that? Who turns them away the first day and says, sorry, it's not right for me, and then have them call back a second year and say, listen, would you like to be part of it? That was awesome.
Yeah, because you almost got cast for the first season, right?
I did.
So that's cool that you got called back. Like, even if you don't get it the first time and they're like, no, there's still a chance that they're gonna want you again.
Yeah.
Because success even with like the Canadian season, like with our podcast there's 6 of us, right? And only 2 of us are Canadians. Like, there are so many Americans watching this show, so many people all over the world who are like finding episodes online and like tuning in and stuff and voting, and it's just so cool to see so many people interested in this season. Yeah. It's awesome.
Like, I mean, I've got people from Australia, from England, from like Sweden, from South Africa, right, which is where I'm originally from.
Mm-hmm.
I get so many people get into contact with me, and I'm just blown away how big this show is and the Big Brother whole community and family is, that I think it's just awesome. And now I have, I mean, from 16-year-olds wanting to talk to me to like 60-year-olds wanting to talk to me about the show and how they see it. You know what I mean? My kids, I've got like a jar of quarters, like huge, because of all of my cussing in the house. I mean,
that's crazy.
When you're in the house and everything's like effing this and effing that and effing you and F you, all of a sudden I start to talk like that, and my kids were so upset with me when I came home. They're like, Daddy, you use some bad words in that house. I'm like, what do you say? So anyway, it's all good. It's all good. I had fun.
Yeah.
So are you continuing to watch the show now? Like, you and your family, like, sitting down, watching the episodes? Like, have you been watching the feeds and stuff now, too?
The good thing about having a bit of a fan base is that they always let me know what's going on anyway, which is great, right? Like, Ika's, like, always texting me going, I can't believe she just did that. Did she just really do that? And then Kyle's texting me, did you see that? So I'm always, like, talking to them about the show. Woulda, coulda, shoulda, why, things like that. I think Andrew said something about he's never going to watch the feeds. That's a bunch of baloney. I think when you're in the house and you are part of that, you almost feel like you have to follow what's going on. And I'm such a big fan of the show anyway that it doesn't matter. I'll be watching it, and next year I'll probably be doing interviews too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And getting to ask people questions, and that'll be kind of cool. To see who will want to talk to Paul about or Paulina about whatever.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'm still a huge fan of the show, and just having been part of it now, like, dude, when I talk to people, they talk to me from the perspective of watching it, versus when I talk to you, I've been in the house, so it's a very different way of seeing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's that way too. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So maybe you'll like add a little panel block, and once in a while I'll join you guys.
Yeah, that would be awesome. That would be so cool. This has been awesome. Do you guys have any more questions that we should ask? Any other things that we've missed out?
I think I'm good. Oh, All-Stars. If they call you back, like, what would you change about your game?
Well, the very first thing that I'm doing is that I got to drop like at least 30 pounds, man. I got to get into shape. I'm so out of shape, and that Divergent killed me. The heights, I'm petrified of heights, eh? So that was like a fear I conquered. But to tell the truth, I need to get back into shape. That's the one thing. And the second thing is I probably won't call anybody a racist the first week. That might be a bad move, you know what I mean?
Wait until the feeds go up, and then we can...
Just lay low, But yeah, for sure. I mean, and the crazy thing is, I mean, they even told me, for somebody that's been on the show, for as short as the time that I was, I made such a huge impact, and I think that's what it's about. You know what I mean? You're really utilizing that time versus somebody like, I'm just going to say Rochelle, who could probably be on the show for the whole season and really didn't, to me personally, didn't bring that much to it. But someone like Sabrina might have, because she played that kind of villain character. Or even Andrew, brought something to the show. So I think that's what it's about. And when I was watching it from my couch, I always said, those are the type of people I want to see. Like Paul or even Andrew being such a jerk. I want to see Sabrina. Some of them I just didn't feel like, do you know what I mean? As a fan of the show, those are the characters. So if they called me back, brother, I would be there 110% for sure.
That's awesome.
I know Teddy had a question that he wanted us to ask. he texted it. He's like, he's always wondered how they have all the POV or HOH costumes ready. Like, do they take everybody's measurements before the show, or do they test out the clothes when the feeds are off?
So yeah, usually what would happen is that they would, you sequester it obviously before you go on the show itself, and that's when you do a wardrobe kind of checkup. And it wouldn't be like you know what I mean? Like they just do measurements and stuff, so that whatever they put you in, they'll know kind of what your measurements are.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how they do it. So yeah, they would have you pre-measured. Believe me, they measure everything under the sun before you go into that house, because there's no more contact after that, right? So they have to have everything kind of set and ready to go.
Yeah.
So.
Because, like, if something doesn't fit and you have to go out into the competition, like, what are you going to do? They can't just, like, make a brand new costume for you, like, before the competition.
You literally don't have contact with anybody once you go in that house. I mean, they'll talk to you through whichever means, but really when they say that they have no contact with you, you literally don't see anybody besides the people that you're in the house with. So that's just the reality of how the show works. So, yeah.
And just one more thing that I remembered that we haven't talked about was the war room and the secret house guests.
Yeah.
We've seen that now, right? Do you think that anything more is going to happen with the war room? Because there's a lot of people that are thinking, maybe the first 3 people that go into jury are going to go in the war room, and then we're all going to vote who we think is going to come back. Do you think we're going to see people in the war room again this season?
Listen, I just heard a rumor today that Anik was coming back on the show, right? And that's why Twitter and social media were down and nobody could reach her. And I was like, because I tried to tweet her, and then all of a sudden it's like dead. I was blocked, and I'm like, what the heck's going on? And then everybody started tweeting that Anik, the first person out, is coming back in, and then we find out it was just a big hoax. So, I mean, with the twist, you really just don't know what's going to happen. And this is the first time that they've had so many twists that Canada feels so involved with the game. So I don't know. I don't think it'd be a good strategy. I think that was kind of a played out situation with the war room. I think now they need to do something a little different. And besides, they should have brought Scott in besides Allison, because her game was just about Andrew. So
I know, it's so disappointing. Like, I think all of us voted Allison in, and now we're just kind of like, she's not doing anything.
Can you imagine this Scott and Paulina show? Come on,
that would have been perfect. That would have been so good.
Epic. And you know what? I wouldn't be the last one finished on the Divergent Challenge. Way behind me. Come on.
Yeah.
Perfect. I would be the only out of shape guy in the house. Gee whiz. But anyway.
It would have been interesting to see if Scott would have came in. I think that the game would have changed, like, right when he came in, whereas when Allison came in, it just kind of, like, stayed the same. Like, nothing really...
He strengthened who was already in power,
She kind of just blended in.
Yeah, and I mean, Allison wasn't even there for less than an hour, and then Andrew already told her what I told him, which happened 3 weeks prior to that. But he kept and held on to that so much that literally I didn't get a chance to talk to the girl, and he already tells her what I did. So that automatically put a wedge between Allison and I, and then we never spoke after that. Do you know what I mean? And the whole house was upset with him because they're like, Andrew, let it go. That happened 3 weeks ago. What are you doing? But he felt like he still needed to hold on to that. And that just ruined it because I didn't get a chance to talk to Allison. I even said to her, I said, just base it on my character and my interactions with you, but nothing. She didn't even talk to me because he got to her 45 minutes into the fact that she got in, told her, and then it was done from there. So,
Yeah. It'll definitely be interesting to see what happens in the next few weeks. This is going to be a really good season. It's crazy. Yeah. There's no way in telling which way it's going to go.
And good on Heather, too. Good on Heather for making that call. I thought Heather was a pretty boring player. To tell the truth, I mean, her squeaky little voice just crawled. My skin was every time she spoke. I was like, are you serious? The girls were really mean to her in the house. I heard some of the stuff they said. But Heather finally has lost a bit of that little little voice of hers, and she's actually starting to speak up now. And she's making a good choice. So I'm giving her some props though. She's starting to play the game, so I like that.
Yeah, I think so far since she's been HOH, like she's already playing like so much more than even Rochelle did during her HOH.
She's playing her own game, which is what I like. So Yeah, I like that fact. So it's all good. It's all good.
It's going to be really interesting. Well, I think that's it for this episode of the Zing 6 podcast. But thank you very much, Paul, for joining us. It's been amazing talking to someone who's been in the house.
Oh, and shout out to Lachey because she's like your biggest fan. Have you talked to her yet? I know you saw her. You saw her. Her Tumblr is Paul-Jackson. I saw you tweeted that you saw it, so she's like she's like your biggest fan. Trust me.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Listen, let me just tell you guys just real quick. The reason why I got on the show was just to make sure that everybody understands that you need to be authentic to who you are and be yourself, and don't let anybody bully you. Stand up for what you believe, and be proud of who you are, no matter how different you are. Just like Kylie said, we preach that all the time. And as a motivational speaker, PaulJacksonConsulting.com. Go there, check it out, see what I'm all about. And you never know, I might be in your city doing a speaking engagement. Come listen to me talk. It's all good. Love you guys. Love my fans. You guys are freaking awesome. Insane, dude. Yeah.
Thank you
so much.
Thanks so much, Paul.
Thanks
Bye, Paulina.
Yeah.